you know, $3,000, you've got to be staying in disgusting places, right? Or how does that work?
Yeah. No.
No, I think it's a balance. So like Alex said, she does like, she stayed pretty nicely, hotels here, hostels there. I find in Europe, I had to stay in hostels, like in Rome. I paid, I think like 45 euros for a bunk in Italy, and in India that would have been a really, really nice hotel. So I think if you pick the destination, there's no such thing as hostels in India, which is where I spend the bulk of my time, but there's a lot of nice family-run places. And I'm encouraged by Europe that they have things like Airbnb, VRBO, and couch surfing where you can stay affordably in a comfortable situation for not much money.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the key thing is if you want to travel for a long time, you just look for a destination that is relatively inexpensive. And third world countries still are affordable. And so you look for where the dollar exchange rate really gets you far. And just doing that will allow you to really extend your dollars.
I think one of the biggest things is to kind of adjust the way you're thinking about what travel costs. I think in the United States we kind of function on that stereotype of, well, if Club Med is $3,500 for a week, times 4 is a month, and times 12 is a year. And really you're looking at, when you look at alternatives to traditional American tourism, none of my clients have been millionaires. You know, when I was saving, I certainly wasn't a millionaire, but it was a matter of what can you go without, you look for savings in your budget. I mean, we can easily spend $1,200 a year at Starbucks without even realizing it. I mean, that's a round the world ticket. So looking for the places in your budget where you can just stop those leaks without even realizing it. And then looking for those alternatives to traditional tourism, so volunteering, working, studying, homestays, all of those things. And when you travel more slowly, and Alex is the one to talk to you about this, because she's a very big maven of slow travel. When you look at travel, the majority of what we spend is on transport. So when you're staying in one place for a month, 2 months, 3 months at a time, it's really just your daily expenses, so food, laundry, internet, stuff like that.
And we'll probably get into this later, but exactly, alternative forms of travel and alternative forms of making money while you travel. You know, teaching English in Korea. A friend of mine lived on a NOAA ship, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Association, and she got paid minimum wage to make salads and clean toilets, not at the same time, hopefully. And in 6 months, she made something like $20,000 because she wasn't spending anything, and then she just went straight into traveling from that. And she got to see the world while she was on that NOAA ship. So there's so many ways to think about this alternatively. I've known people who've picked olives on farms, and in Italy you can work on a wolfing trip, which is worldwide opportunities on organic farms. And there, you kind of find what you're passionate about, and so we're going to break up after this in 15-minute chunks with each of the panelists, and you can ask questions. This is what I really love. What could I look into? But there's so many volunteer and work opportunities that you just wouldn't think about unless you asked around.
Could we talk a little bit about that one that you brought up, because it's interesting, Alex. So the idea of finding work while you travel, I mean, that's not something most people would have any experience. If you're going to Mexico for a week, you're not going to obviously look for work there. But so how can you actually make money while you're traveling? I mean, how would you even find out about opportunities? Are you looking on Craigslist, or how would you figure that out?
And there's probably 7 billion people on the planet, 7 billion ways of doing this. I've met people who were certified massage therapists that gave massages in hostels. I've met hairdressers that would cut hair in hostels for $5. There's so many different ways of being, you have to be really creative, think outside of the box, but that's what, travel teaches you that, to think in these new ways.
No, I would totally agree with that, and I think the idea of like 7 billion ways to do this. When an amazing travel writer named Stephanie Elizondo wrote a book called Around the Block, My Life in, Moscow, Beijing, and Havana, and she wrote about how she made quite a bit of money proofreading. When she was living in China, she was proofreading people who were writing copy for newspapers, but English was their second language. So she went through and combed for little idioms, little places where the English was technically correct but didn't quite make sense, and that's part of how she made her money there. I've had clients teach yoga. I had one client work at a bar in Costa Rica. The one thing to keep in mind too is that I'm always working with my clients on how to pitch this when you come home. So when you're looking to possibly re-enter the workforce, volunteering and working is actually one of the best ways to make the sabbatical really good on your resume. Even if what you really are doing is hanging out and making pina coladas at a beachfront resort, you can speak corporate when you come home and say that you contributed to the edification of a microfinance organization in Mexico. So that's kind of like, and we'll talk about more about like translating between sabbatical and corporate later, but there is 7 billion ways to do it. So 2 things I say is, look for the skills you already have that travel. If you do teach English, if you do teach yoga, if you're a really great photographer, things like that, how can you use that on the road? And then, you know.
So Francis and Kristen, you guys are both sort of tech people, so, and we're in Silicon Valley, so I'm sure there's people, I mean, you guys are, I assume, weren't cutting hair. You know, how did you figure
I got a haircut.
I actually cut my own hair this weekend. Not bad, right? I think I could do it. So what were you guys doing, or how are you working?
I actually took a little bit of a different approach where I worked in between trips. But what was interesting about that, and I think anyone with professional experience that's kind of in demand that can do, is I didn't want to go back to a permanent job or a full-time job. I just wanted to travel again. So I would comb jobs at home, and I would call up the companies and say, hey, I noticed you had a project or were looking for these skill sets. I have it. Would you be interested in some temporary or contract work? And when I was doing this is 2009, I don't know if you remember, but the Dow was like 6,700, like we were in the depths of the recession. And that was actually a really attractive option for a lot of companies I contacted. So I got 2 really nice paying consulting gigs in between my trips to do that. And it also kind of, I think, made me more employable when I decided to stop traveling and move to San Francisco, because I was very adept at selling my skills and professional experience. I'm very interested in the digital nomad movement, especially those who work in online design or online programming, because they truly can work from anywhere.